Hello, welcome. It's so wonderful to have you join us today. My name is Rabbi Deborah Bowden Cohen, and I'm an editor at Behrman House. And I have had the pleasure over the last, year and a half, 2 years. It seems like a long time, doesn't it? Of working with Ellen Rank and Susan Susie, who are the authors of the new textbook and journal called Positively Torah. And Susie and Ellen are here today to tell us more about the book and the process of writing Positively Torah. It is a textbook for fifth through seventh graders that uses positive psychology along with traditional Torah study to learn about the sacred stories of our tradition, but more importantly, how young people can relate to them and learn from them about themselves. Um, I'm going to turn it over now to some questions for Ellen and Susie, because they're really the experts in this, and I'm sure will be able to tell us some wonderful suggestions and ideas for using Positively Torah in the classroom and tell us more about the process of writing the book. Ellen, we're going to start with you. Your book, Positively Torah, The Superpower of Character, is unique in many ways, both in its concept, its format, and in its interactive nature. Tell us about the foundational ideas that helped to shape Positively Torah.
Thanks very much, Debbie. So, Susie and I, first of all, we were passionate about believing in the importance of Torah text and helping learners to thrive. So we took our passions together. And in our previous positions, Susie and I worked a lot with congregations and educators to help them design programs that would help their learners to thrive, to help them be at their best, to help them feel good about themselves, to help them make the world a better place. All of this was based on positive psychology. So, one of the great tools that we used, I don't know if it's really a tool, but the VIA Institute, which bases all their work and research on positive psychology, they're an organization that is a nonprofit organization dedicated to bringing the science of character strengths really to the world. They have created great surveys that anybody can take for free that tells you about your own positive character strengths. They have a specific survey for youth also. So, as part of this program, every learner takes their survey and they learn about themselves. We're going to talk more later about how we use the VIA survey um, but the survey is based on this research that shows that everybody in the world, it doesn't matter where you are or when you were living, has the same 24 positive character strengths. Um, but they're in a different hierarchy. So, for example, my top three are honesty, love, and judgment. Susie's top three, totally different: kindness, social intelligence, and appreciation of beauty and excellence. And we want kids to know their own strengths. We want them to know the strengths of others. We also really believe in the great importance of Torah study, and we want the kids to see how Torah and reading Torah can be an important part of their own lives, and it applies to their lives today. It's not just some ancient text that isn't relevant. So we merged Torah, Jewish values, and positive psychology as our foundation. Susie, add to what I said, right?
Well, I'm wanted to amplify the idea about what positive psychology brings to the table. So, positively psychology has been around, as we said, through the V Institute before Martin Seligman was the founder. And but that was 26 plus years ago, many years in the making. And so there are other people that contributed, like Daniel Goleman, who famous for EQ. He penned that word, and he noticed that the key to human relationships is noticing and appreciating the positive characteristics in others. So we, as Ellen said, we're passionate about helping our youth navigate through the treacheries of life, relationships, and making them better. We pulled on the contributions of Carol Dweck. Everyone knows this growth mindset. I can do it. I can't do it yet. I love that expression. Anyone says, I can't do it, and you just add yet. And it always brings a smile to their face, like, oh, maybe I can. So it's that sort of positive growth, that positive mindset that both attracted us to this body of knowledge. There's Sonia Lubomirsky, who wrote the book, The How of Happiness, great book. And she, among many other things, documented the idea that if you want to find the pathway to happiness and well-being for yourself, do something good for someone else. And she calls it the boomerang effect. And the boomerang effect means that when you do something for someone else, it comes back to you. So I love that idea. I think it's fun. Kids love that. We incorporated that into Positively Torah. And it happens to be, though, that it's a fact that when people self-report, how are they doing before they do something kind to someone or good for someone, and then afterwards they report a spike and how they're doing weeks afterwards. So just remember that. And then along the way, Yale professor Dr. Laurie Santos offered a course called Psychology and the Good Life. And she offered it to the undergrads, and she walked in the first day of her courses, the course day, and there were 1,500 people that were signed up, and they had to move locations. It was such a success that many institutions started offering that course, which is a 12-week course in positive psychology. And many people attribute all of the people I just mentioned to this explosive growth in the interest in positive psychology. And among those people are Ellen and I. So we brought that to our book.
You mentioned a few minutes ago some of the positive character strengths, but could you mention a few more? And why do you call them superpowers?
So first of all, what I want to mention that all 24 character strengths are good. There is not one that is better than another. So some of them are perseverance, leadership, teamwork, curiosity. In our book, it lists all 24. I don't know if I said perseverance, perspective, honesty, judgment. They're all in there. A lot of times people will say, oh, that person is a real leader and we want to train people to be leaders. Not everybody is a leader. That's not what they do best. It's not their comfort zone. Somebody may be a great team player, and that person is really valuable. And they're using their ability to work with others is their positive character strength. Or curiosity. Sometimes we have the student who asks 800 questions. instead of saying, why do you keep asking these annoying questions? We can say, you are really curious and you really want to know all this stuff. And the curiosity can bring things out. So what we've done I'm not going to name all 24, but what we've done in the book is we focused on the strengths that we feel that the students can relate to. And we intertwine them in the Torah stories. And let me just go back for a second. When we talk about this hierarchy of strengths, your top strengths, that come out on the survey are the ones you tend to go to most easily. They're the ones that you use most often. They're the ones that when you use them, you feel good about yourself. And it helps you to be at your best. As I said, Susie and I will joke with each other about our top strengths. Mine is not, honesty is number one. So she knows that whatever I think, she's going to hear it because I'll couch it nicely. But honesty, and I see that as an important strength. So we want students to know what their top strengths are. And later we'll talk more about how they learn what each other's strengths are and how we build that in others. But Susie, can you talk a little bit more about the term superpower?
Thank you. So we chose superpower as a metaphor to describe what's best in each of us because the term is everywhere. It's in the zeitgeist. Every kid knows about the superhero universe. And every kid knows that each superhero has a different superpower. And like those superpowers, we each have our own superpowers, and that is different, as Ellen just described, from other people. And one, as she said, is not better than another. And we say that a gazillion times because um, one of the character strengths that people really want to have, as Ellen said, is they want to be a leader. They may not be so suited for it. Humor is another one. Everyone wants to be funny. Everybody thinks they're a comedian, but not everybody has that, but everybody has something. And that is, as Ellen said, what energizes them, what comes most easily for them. That is our own superpower. And they describe what's best in humanity. And we all have worth and we all have value and we share that. And it's our way, when we use our superpowers well, we can contribute and make the world a much better place. So I think it truly is a great metaphor for our ability to use these superpowers.
You're 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 so passionate about positive psychology. What drew you to it at the beginning, and what other parts of your background did you bring to the whole process of writing this textbook?
So I worked for the Board of Jewish Education, which became the Jewish Education Project with Ellen, and my portfolio was, among many things, was to prepare a day of learning. And the Jewish Education Project was beginning to be immersed. This is in like 10 years ago, immersed in positive psychology. So I took several courses with the VIA Institute, and I loved it. I found it just eye-opening and so empowering that I brought Jillian Darwish, who's now the head of the VIA Institute, to the Jewish Education Project to bring people up, to initiate them into the beauties of this system. And my job, among helping plan the day, was also to plan the Jewish part. And that was when I first got the idea to take the Miriam stories, focus on her characteristics of bravery and zest, and have the group discuss them and talk about how they would use them in their classes. And it was really fun and really successful. And everybody walked out of that day flying. Fast forward, I was then put on the Thriving Conference, which was this national conference that the Jewish Education Project put on. And so we designed it and presented at it. It presented it at it. And it was also really, really successful. And I also read the book Grit, and AKA Perseverance, another of the 24 character strengths, and presented that as the initiating book for the book club for the educators in the metropolitan New York area. So I just love it. Honestly, I find that people find it so helpful that and empowering, and they leave a little lighter and a little happier and a little brighter. And to me, I just think it's just a gift to everyone to learn about this system.
You started with the Miriam story. That's interesting. I didn't realize that.
That was my
Wonderful.
the
And
first of many. Yes.
Ellen, how did you get involved in the project
Well,
then?
I was working with Susie at the Jewish Education Project. So we
Okay.
were incorporating the VIA Institute stuff, the positive psychology, into our work with educators and congregations. And, I did a few workshops with taking a text and applying character strengths to it and how you could do it in the classroom. So I was used to doing that. And I really thought it was a great vehicle for getting kids to understand character strengths, to understand themselves, and to get another insight into Torah study. And Susie and I are both educators who have worked with taught many different ages, have visited many different schools, and we sort of see this need to help kids. The thing with positive psychology is that it's positive. We're not telling kids what they can't do. We're telling them what they can do, what they're good at. Susie and I also brought in, we have strong backgrounds in biblical and rabbinic literature, and we're passionate about that. And we want today's kids to connect to those texts, to see them as living documents that connect to their own lives today. So, we've sort of woven our dedication to Jewish education, to our belief in the power of positive psychology, the importance of being able to look at ancient texts and seeing how they really still speak to us today. We've sort of woven all that and Jewish values into the lives of learners today. So that's, and I just think it's a great way to, do so many things at one time.
Torah is a really contemporary modern book, but it utilizes some traditional Torah study approaches. How do you guide educators, Ellen, to best understand and use positively Torah to do classic Torah study?
Okay, so we have parts of our approach are traditional, parts of the approach are different from the traditional approach. Um, Same as a traditional Torah study, we do a close reading of our original text is translated into English. It's not the Hebrew text, but it's as close to the biblical text as we could do. So there's a close reading of the text. There's personal insights that go into the text. We integrate rabbinic teachings and Jewish values. And we do a lot of this in Chevruta study. And we don't just say to kids in the beginning, okay, work with your Chevruta. Chevruta there's a lot of steps to knowing how to be a Chevruta partner. And throughout the book, we introduce students to different skills that they need to be a good Chavruta partner. And these skills help them to build relationships with one another, and it helps them to learn how to communicate effectively, how to work with a group. So those are very traditional approaches to Torah study. A little more less traditional is that we always had in mind multiple intelligences. So in there, we're addressing what the musical student, ways to reach the musical student, the artistic student, the dramatical student, the mathematical student. We have different activities that will speak to them. So that's not traditional lens for Torah study. It's also not a traditional lens in Torah study to say, all right, let's look at this. What character strengths are being shown in here? What's being used well? Sometimes what could be used better? So that is a different lens for Torah study. But so those are the similarities and a few of the differences. And Susie, I think you were going to speak more about on that topic, right?
Actually, you said everything I wanted to say. So yeah, I think she said it really well, that it is we tried to help contemporary kids just connect. We care passionately that they connect to the text, that they connect to Judaism, that they know what Jewish values are, that they can think about the world, and that they have information, that they're equipped to look at the world and think, what should be my place? How can I help? And we tried to help them connect in every way that we could through through the multiple intelligences. And
Susie, I'm going to interrupt you for a second because when you and I spoke about this before, you also brought out the idea of involving families and the carpool questions.
well,
And
right. So I was about to get to that. So
okay, great. Sorry.
no, so in terms of that level, we felt strongly, but we have a very strong thank you association and affinity to nurture parents as our partners. So we interwove the carpool questions are in the teacher's guide in the back of each um, conclusion of each chapter in the teacher's guide. We also looked for many opportunities. We looked to provide many opportunities for parents to interact with and caregivers to interact with their kids, not just through carpool questions, but also we structured in we interviews about the different character strengths. We wanted to involve them as much as possible in the character strengths. So we have something in the back of a journal called Bringing It Home, where you tell a parent or a trusted adult what you learned about, in this case, the fairness superpower. And then you ask them to tell you about someone they know and admire that uses their fairness superpower to take action. So anybody can think of someone who does something fair. And it's an opportunity to learn about what's going on in their lives and to connect as much as possible. As a parent, my daughter used to, when I would say, how was school? She would describe what people were wearing or the shoes they had. So, that's not what we're going for. So we decided to raise the level and we put in as much as possible. And then when we started piloting this program, we found that parents didn't know anything about this. They were confused. Is this the Myers-Briggs? How does it compare? What's the difference? So with a congregation in Westchester, an educator, she and I developed a introductory meeting where they got to know all the 24 character strengths and took this survey. They took the survey as the entrance ticket, and they looked at what their surveys results were, what were their superpowers, what are other people's superpowers, and looked at the biblical text, etc. And it was a resounding success. People were excited and looked at the whole system as a different way to look at themselves and at their children. And it was really like goosebumpy, really goosebumpy. So we insisted that we include in the teacher's guide a detailed, and I mean detailed, description of this workshop to encourage everyone to start the year off putting everyone on a level playing field, same foundation, and letting them start to think about the possibilities of what can be with their superpowers and their family's superpowers and other superpowers, and noticing and looking and connecting with other people. And there were many stories about people saying, like wearing a tag that says, my superpower is creativity or kindness or whatever it is. And I don't know, it's very exciting. So, and that, of course, is not in your typical traditional text approach. And then we have journaling, which is so fun. So, the expression learning is in the reflection. And we learn about the nuances of the character strengths. And in those nuances, we start to think about ourselves differently. And then we created a journal as a space to document that and to process that. And really to think about, as I said, the possibilities of what can be, like, how can I use this? And what could that look like? And how am I like these biblical characters? And how am I like Miriam, like I said, in terms of courage? Or how can I be braver like Miriam? And how can I be like Joseph, forgiving but not forgetting? And how can I learn to forgive myself? So these are all questions that are explored in the journal and in the text. And what we did was, so we really wanted it to be a special place. So we thought about the medium as the message. The form tells you that this is something special and private. So the book starts like this, and then you flip it over, and the journal is turned over so that no one can, when you're reading the book, using the book during your regular sessions, you can't inadvertently see what someone wrote. It's meant to be very private. So, for example, a closer look at honesty and authenticity in the journal that describes when you are authentically you. You don't want other people to see that. That's for you. And this book, we tried to create it as a vehicle to document your progress and your thoughts and your exploration into the different kinds of nuances that come learning about each superpower.
Just clarify, just to make sure everybody understands. It's one book, but it has both the textbook and the journal inside. So you flip it over, okay, and you can. So they have one book, and they can flip it and do have everything all in one.
Right,
Okay,
right. Thank
great.
you. Yeah.
And Ellen, a bit ago you were talking about Chavruta study, and I was wondering if you could just give a very brief description of what Chavruta study is for people that might not be familiar with the term.
Okay, so Chavruta study is really paired learning. Sometimes you end up with 3 kids together because just the number of kids in a group. But the chavruta skills are things like listening, knowing not to speak when another person is listening. It may be you sit with your partner and you say, okay, here's a text. How are we going to look at it? Who's going to read it out loud first? Who's going to think about this question? You decide together. And it's a way of building off of each other's thinking. It doesn't mean that you have to say, I agree with you. It's often very nice to politely challenge your chavruta partner and say, where do you see that in the text? Can you explain to me more? I want to hear more about what you've said. So throughout the book, there are in different chapters, we say, here's a new chavruta skill for you to practice. And we encourage, the educator to have an ongoing list of chavruta skills that are posted so you can remind your group, this is what we do when we're working with a partner. Does that explain it better, Debbie?
That explains it really well, and that's one of the things that I really like about the book is that it has the chavruta etiquette parts in it where it gives those hints and suggestions because it is really a learned skill to be able to learn and also to interact with other people and to inspire them to learn as well. So that's something that I very much appreciate about the book.
So,
Um, Susie, you and Ellen have used earlier versions of this program and this approach. How did the students react to it? And was there anything that surprised you about their reactions?
So there were several, actually. The first one is just to take a step back. This material is complicated. So as you mentioned in the beginning, it's for 5th through 7th grade. It's been used with 8th grade. It's been used with 9th grade. And it's very different. So the students feel sort of honored that you're trusting them with this mature kind of discussion and content. And the teacher, their teachers often would report that they're better behaved. So that was like, wow. Yeah, that was a surprise that we really did not see coming. But so that's one thrilling surprise. The second surprise was that the nature of this program is to notice their strengths, the strengths of others, the strengths of the biblical characters everywhere, all the time. So when you do that, you start, as Daniel Goleman would say, you start to see the best in everyone. And that is, as he documented, is the key to forging relationships and deepening relationships and strengthening relationships. And that's what happened. We are like the anecdotal test case for him, because many, or the ones that we heard from, schools said that it created a kind of cocoon, that people felt safe. The kids felt safe. They felt like people liked them. They felt like people know them. They felt more generous because of that and kinder to each other. And there was this sort of transformation that happened throughout the year of this really, really wonderful classroom environment that at first I thought it was because one of the first teachers that did it was an outstanding teacher, but others have also reported similar results. So I encourage everybody to try it and just let the magic work. Start noticing, finding the good in everyone. And if you think it, it sort of becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. And so those were my two big surprises.
And one of the things that I really got such a kick out of was one of the educators. She's actually the rabbi at the synagogue, um, and but teaches a class using Positively Torah. And she just would talk about how much, aside from the kids, quote, learning and being absorbed in it, how much fun they had. And there's one of the things we do is Rebecca at the well, and you imagine that you're one of the camels at the well, and you take on that part. She took pictures of the class with some of the kids on the floor as camels and just said they had the best time, but really dove into the story that way. And it was just so much fun to see kids pick up on these kind of activities that Susie and I would say, oh, this is really going to be a fun way for them to explore it. And it worked. So it was nice to hear from, our pilot schools what things that we thought would work really did work. So it was great joy.
And those that didn't, we took out.
Yes. Yeah.
Who studies Positively Torah is encouraged to take the survey, the students and also the teachers. Susie, why is it so important to take the survey and why have the teachers do it as well?
So I love that question because because people don't take the survey, and they the survey provides the tools to build the resilience and the armor to buffer these difficult times and to pave the way for good times. And everybody has a different hierarchy, and they print it for you. And the question is, so why doesn't everybody use it? Why doesn't everybody do it? Why doesn't everybody leverage it to be so successful? And they took a survey of 6 million people, and they found that most people can't name their number one quality, their number one characteristic. There are 24 that everybody has, but they can't even name their number one because they don't know it. We're so busy. We don't think in terms of a strength-based approach. We're so busy thinking about what we don't do right. We don't think what we do right. And that's what this is, just a completely different mindset. So what we did was we make sure, like I said, I did with the Westchester educator in the opening, getting to know you, getting to know the curriculum back to school night, everyone had to have their sheets filled out. You could not enter the room. There were computers set up. If you didn't do it before, you can do it on your phone. It takes 10 minutes. It's free. It is really revealing. And so we have our one in chapter 1, every student takes this survey. And then they look at their top 5 and they create a shield that's going to convey something about their top 5. And they look at others, and we have a gallery. They look at the gallery of these strengths, and they see that not everyone has their strengths. As a matter of fact, most people don't. As a matter of fact, no one has some of my strengths. And it starts to open their eyes about who's in the room, how different we are, but we all share this basic humanity of goodness and what that can look like when we all work together. And it's so, if you don't have that list, you can't know it. And I always say, I think Ellen is sick of hearing it, but I always say it is the gift you give yourself. And there are studies that show that if you look at your list before you have a very stressful event or depressing event, it buffers you and gives you the armor to continue because you know who you are. If somebody says something nasty to you, they can't take that away from you. You have this goodness, you have these superpowers that are inherent in you. and they're easiest for you. And so it's A, it's empowering. B, they don't have this knowledge. If you don't take the test, you can't know it. You can't assume it. There's nothing like reading the piece of paper and then learning what it means. Because we have had people like, even with Jillian Darwish, when she came with these huge room of educators, there was an educator whose top strength was fairness. And she just walked out. She said, "That's ridiculous." Because she didn't understand what fairness was. And the truth is, she is very fair. And who doesn't want to be? But she didn't think of it like that because she thought of it in terms of, I want to be funny, I want to be a leader, I want to be. But by embracing who you really are and what comes naturally to you, you become so much more. And that's why it's so important to take the the survey. Why do we insist teachers take it? Because until you take it yourself and go through that whole experience of looking at it, these are my top five, what's wrong? My bottom one is prudence. You might know that about me. You don't have to spend very long at all to know that I'm just going to jump right in. I try so hard, but and one of the good things about positive character strengths is you can get better at it. I'm hoping I got better at it. I don't know. But you can, but I think if I hadn't noticed that one even, I didn't even know that about myself. But there's so much to learn in every part of the survey. So it's very important for the teacher to do that for him or herself, or for themselves. But having said that, also the awareness of finding what your strength is, what your strength is, what your strength is, just noticing it, it helps in every way to have that list and to notice the list. As a matter of fact, I remember I did it with a congregation in Manhattan. And as I said, some people just didn't take the thing, and they kept saying things like, well, where's intelligence? And where's this? So once you look at the list, you understand the way it's broken down, and you understand the differences in people. And that, like Ellen said, and this goes to the next one, we encourage parents to do it, to take this survey also, and to understand that just because you have genetically or not really, just because you're a family does not mean you're going to share any of the top five um, signature strengths with each other. And sometimes it's hard. Like Helen said about I always think of the person that, and you're so annoying, with the millions of questions. But if you reframe it to think, no, they're just curious. Um, or this love of learning, you can channel it into, they're always on their phone Googling it. Well, maybe, what are they doing on their phone? They're Googling, all sorts of information. Maybe there are other ways to do it. Maybe they can go to a museum. Maybe they can do all sorts of things. But once you learn that about them, now you can ask them lots of questions with love of learning and see what they come up with because they've learned a lot. So there are just so many benefits to taking the survey.
Susie, that I wanted to add is we ask educators to really model what we call strength spotting, so that when you see a student doing something, you say, oh, look, I saw you, as I said before, your curiosity. I saw you using your kindness. I saw when you did X, Y, or Z. We want the educators to model this. And then I think a really wonderful part of embedded in the book is that at the end of each chapter, the students reach into a box and they randomly pull out the name of another person in their group. And they know everybody's strengths because hopefully they're posted someplace on their shields. And they need to write down how they saw the person in their group, their peer, using a superpower in a positive way. And we put those all on a poster, and they're collected through the year. At the end of the year, you get to take home the way that people saw you using your superpowers. And it really builds self-esteem, and it encourages using these superpowers. um, I was telling a friend about this, and she was saying how her daughter, who's very pretty, was in a class, and everybody was supposed to write something nice about the person. She was hoping somebody to say that she's, creative, or she got all these things. She's really pretty. Well, no, that's not what we want. We're not looking for that. We're looking for, I saw you using your judgment when you did such and such. So that's embedded in the process, and it really encourages kids to look at themselves and others and how we're using these superpowers in positive ways.
And just to add, to underscore the importance of that, if a teacher says it, it gives you a compliment, that's great. But if a peer says it, the weight of that peer, which is why it wounded that girl so much, was she was hoping for so much more. And we, on purpose, structured it so that peers would deliver their peers something kind and thoughtful, and then everybody feels noticed and liked and special.
Study is really the core of this book. But you and Susie worked together in putting the book together. And so it was something of a chavruta as well. How did that process of writing the book go and working with one another?
Oh, okay. So first of all, we had a lot of fun, but we know we work very differently. We think very differently. I like charts. Susie likes big ideas. We would think about a problem we had, a goal that we had. We'd work on it individually. Then we would powwow. It's sort of like a think, pair, share kind of thing where we gave each other space to think independently. And then, as I said, we have different strengths. So we would also divide our work differently. We could say, okay, you write this and I'll do this part. And then we would check each other's things, and we would powwow and work together until we agreed that we were reaching our goal, that it looked like what we wanted it to look like, and that it was comprehensible. So it was just a lot of fun to work together because we do work so differently. It's a great plus. Susie,
Vision. Oh, I'm sorry. Susie, did you have anything you wanted to add?
I think only that we do work really well, and we are so different, but it's so much fun to hear what she's going to come out with. And every once in a while, we would come up with something, and like questions, follow-up questions. And we would think to like, well, how would you answer that? Like, what is the answer? And we would there's not a question in the book that wasn't proved, especially by us, like, what answer would you come up with? Like, if we didn't have an answer, then the question was going to be retweaked, going to be tweaked or thrown out. And it was that sort of, there was an ego involved. I think that's what I loved most about it. It was sort of like we both loved the subject and we wanted it to be the best it could be and are excited for everybody to get it. So it was that kind of, nah, that's not good. Oh no, we gotta get rid of that. So that's all. It was easy. It was really, really wonderful to work together.
yes. Yeah.
And Susie, you wrote a pretty comprehensive teacher's guide to go along with this. Ellen, how do you envision the book being used in a classroom, and how does that teacher's guide help an educator implement the curriculum?
Okay, so first of all, the book can be used in a classroom through the year. It could be used in a youth group. It could be used in a camp setting. We purposely did not put the word classroom in the student text anywhere, so it could be used in a variety of settings. I've had people say to me, "You think I could use this with my youth group? They meet such." I was like, "Absolutely. It doesn't have to be the formal kind of setting." Um, and also it extends to the family as a way that it's being used. As we mentioned, every chapter has discussions that go home to the family, and we envision it being used that way. Um, we through the teacher's guide is extensive, and the teacher's guide really tells you how to create the environment you need, and it also gives specifics about how to supplement each chapter. But our hope, the way that we built the text, is that we supply texts that everybody's going to read together. We tell you this one is about perseverance, this one's about curiosity. And at the very last chapter, we give kids a choice of 3 texts that they've never seen, and they tackle those texts and look into them to discern what character strengths they see being used. And that's our hope, that they take that last everything compiled together and then get to have this new lens when they look at a new Torah text or any kind of literature and say, what do I learn from this? What character strengths are being used, and how do I apply them to my life? So that's how I see it going on.
Right. And then I would just add that in the teacher's guide, there's a section about best practices. So how do you set up your room? How do you create a a warm and welcoming environment? How do you create a safe space? How do you sustain whole group discussions? How do you vary the modes of reading the text? And how do you assess what they're learning? And that we have found that people have given out the teacher's guide to all of their staff because they found it so useful to start for every teacher just to take these best practices and use them in their classrooms or classroom settings or class settings or group settings or wherever you are using this. So yeah, there are many uses for this teacher's guide.
Well, I think our time together is drawing to a close here, but I just want to thank both of you so much for taking the time today to talk with me about the 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 book, and also for putting in all of your efforts to put this wonderful resource and inspirational resource for our community together. Do either of you have any last thoughts that you would like to share with us? Anything you'd like to have us have as a takeaway from the conversation today?
I think that as you could tell, we feel very passionately about the benefits of this strength-based approach. And we just hope that our learners will know, remember, and nurture these superpowers within themselves, notice them in others, as Daniel Goleman's documented, and use them for good to make the world a better place. And we hope that the Torah studies and Jewish values that they learned, they'll incorporate into their lives and use them as their North Star to help navigate their lives. And we really do feel, as I said before, that this is a gift. And we feel grateful that Berman House gave us the opportunity to spread this to a wider market. And that's all.
I just echo what Susie said, that we really are delighted that Behrman House has published this so that we can have it out to the education world all over and people can use this resource. And we hope to hear from people, like what successes they have, how things have gone for them. And because it is a unique curriculum. And we've touched on a lot of the ideas that are in here, but there's so much more when you look through the student text and so much more when you read through the teacher's guide. So we really hope that you will take this and run with it. We think it's a great curriculum and we've seen it piloted and firmly believe in it.
Right.
Okay.
Don't be shy. Don't be shy. Email, text, communicate. Don't be shy.
You again for the time and also for this wonderful, wonderful resource. I look forward to hearing all sorts of stories about how it's used in the classroom and about how students are inspired and learn from it. Thank you. And thank you to our participants for joining us today and listening in and for being interested in Positively Torah.